Is this the dagger?
Illegal substitution, too many men on the field, Saskatchewan.
Gizmo has a block and the sideline. He has not stepped out. He may go all the way. He needs one block and he'll do it easily.
Promise Mess I wouldn't do this.
McDavid stops up. What a move. Shoots. Scores!
Okay, all right, everybody, calm down. Here we go. Yes, it is episode 100 of The Outsiders. Robin, does it feel like it's been 100 episodes?
Triple digits for The Outsiders, pal.
Yeah, exactly. Episode 100. What a episode we have coming up, too. We'll obviously talk a fair bit about the Oilers and the Flames matchup over the weekend. I don't think we'll be talking anything about Will Smith's episode at the Academy Awards. We'll let everybody else talk about that. But we do have to talk about Canada's men's national program. On the pitch, they've qualified for the World Cup of Soccer coming up this winter. It'll kick off, I think, on the 20th or the 21st of November in Qatar. And Canada is part of the whole package. The draw goes on Friday. I'm kind of looking forward to watching it. More intense interest in that. Did you see any of the game, Robin? I know you're not a huge soccer guy.
You know what? I tell you, Bryn, when it comes to something like this, I'm a little bit like you. I find I get into the mood when it's a national thing, when it's Canada and anything, even if it's not my bread and butter most of the year, the interest.
Hang on a second. Hear this? You know who it is? It's AJ Jakubec. I know he was at the match. Hang on a second here. Hey, are you there? Hang on a second. Are you with me?
Yeah, I slept in. I literally just got up got back late from Toronto and slept in.
Well, listen, you're kind of live with us right now on The Outsider, so just stay with us for a couple of minutes, and then we're going to get to Kristian Jack from Soccer One. How was the whole thing?
Awesome. Really awesome.
Really? Nice.
Yeah.
Where were you sitting? In the end zones, or were you... I was all red and white, so I was trying to pick you out, but I couldn't find you.
Yeah, I was close to the Voyageurs, like basically two sections over. So. Well,
you don't sound like you're completely with it yet this morning.
No, I'm not. No, I missed a press conference this morning too. Of all days to sleep in,
wow.
It was like the worst one. So
hey, well, before we get to KJ, we've got AJ. So let me ask you a quick question here. So you've traveled a lot watching this Canadian men's team. You were in El Salvador, you were in Costa Rica, you were in Toronto for the big matchup yesterday. From an atmosphere standpoint and from an excitement level, because you and I are pretty intense in our soccer interests. Robin is passive, but still watch. He just said that. And he admitted it, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But you tell me a little bit about the atmosphere there yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, it was fantastic. It was such a great day. For me, that was the 9th game of qualifying that I had been to, and 6 in Canada, 3 away in Mexico, El Salvador, and also Costa Rica. And it felt like the culmination. I mean, I don't know if it was the best moment to be at. It was certainly the end of it, right? The end of the movie, but maybe it wasn't the best part of the movie, but it just felt like the culmination and the part that certainly you didn't want to miss. So, yeah, incredible atmosphere, incredible run. I mean, I think for me, it's just the journey, right? There's so many different moments that, starting with points in the Azteca Stadium and getting a point in Nashville as well against, the teams that have traditionally been viewed as the two best in CONCACAF in Mexico, in the United States. And then it really kicked off with that Davies goal against Panama, which to me was the critical turning point of the entire qualifying campaign. It helped turn the whole thing. It helped get the entire country behind the team. And then, you came to Edmonton, and there were so many great moments at the Azteca. where, you know, you had Jakubec jumping into the snow and Milan Borjan's sweatpants, which he wore a couple more times after that. And, you know, and a save at the end, which preserved the win against Mexico, and just seeing the freezing Mexican journalists, you know, throughout their time in Edmonton as well. So that was big. But, you know, at that point you thought, okay, how many more highlights can there be? And then you go to Honduras and kind of slay the dragons that you probably didn't expect were going to be exercised, the demons from 8-1 in 2012. And,
Yeah.
You know, Sam Jakubec scoring against the United States in front of a raucous crowd in Hamilton to beat the U.S., where you started to feel, okay, you know what, this is probably going to happen. And then they get the crazy goal from Atiba Hutchinson, a 39-year-old who's been through all the trials and tribulations of what it's been to be a Canadian national team player in El Salvador. And at that point, you know, it was pretty much a given that Canada was going to qualify. And while they didn't get it done in Costa Rica, I thought they played a real good second half, by the way, with 10 men. Yeah, just to finish it in the style that they did against Jamaica in front of that crowd. Fantastic experience, fantastic atmosphere, and pretty cool way to clinch your spot to Qatar.
We're going to let you go so you can get to the next press conference, and I'll track you down in the next couple of weeks here. We'll talk further on this, but we'll let you get some sleep or whatever you got to do, and thanks for calling in.
Oh, I got to work.
Well, you go and do your thing, man, and thanks for calling. I wasn't expecting you to call at this particular time, and it also, that's, I normally turn my phone off, so I guess it's just kind of weird how that worked out, but thanks. We'll talk to you later, okay?
Sounds good.
All right, there we go. AJ Jakubec from TSN 1200 in Ottawa, who also does the play-by-play of the soccer team in Ottawa. All right.
Was that was
completely impromptu?
Is that the issue? We were up a little late last night? Or?
Apparently. For a guy who's been following the team around, he's got every right to have some fun and let it all hang out. He can't let his hair down because he doesn't have any, but there's that. All right, let's get to our guest right off the top. Joining us from Soccer One, did a great job yesterday, I felt, on the broadcast on Sportsnet. Joining us is Kristian Jack. You know what? I thought I don't get envious often of broadcasters, but I was really envious of you yesterday because you were on the sidelines watching that match. And what was it like for you?
It was really special, actually. Great to be with you, Robin and Bryn. It was just a special day. You know, it's a strange feeling sometimes when you're broadcasting. I mean, I was in my position that I've been for hundreds of Toronto FC games in the past when I worked for TSN. And that was a special position. It's never lost on me what a privilege and pleasure it is to be there. But at the end of the day, I had a job to do, and Toronto FC had some good nights and difficult nights when I was there. But it was always easier when they're in good mood. But you don't have a connection with that club. That's not my team. I don't have you develop a few relationships. But when they won MLS Cup, I wasn't hugging people and thinking it was part of me. This was different. With all my years of broadcasting, it felt like that I had a real rooting interest because of the relationships you develop. And I think that's the key thing is with these players. And it's all about them. I give them the credit. They're just an unbelievable group of good people. And I think that shows. And I think that's why people like you and I, who are in the game, we connect with them very well. And then people who don't, and they're starting to fall in love with this team, see them as just a really likable group, both in the way that they entertain playing football and then the way that they carry themselves as well.
Kristian, Bryn and I were talking before you came on, and the question was, as we mentioned to you, I'm old enough to remember the last time in '86. I remember all the buzz and the energy that was created back then. We know what happened. So here and now, what's next now that Canada's in? What's next in your mind?
Well, I think this is just the start, is it not? Like, this is not the end. This is not, let's just all start celebrating and let's just party and forget it. It's like, how do you build from this? It's happened where there's no great Icelandic story of how the Canadian game has changed through the academies and development. And it's not something we can point to as the world will start to tell our story, by the way, in the next 8 months. No, it's not that Icelandic story where suddenly what it is the country has come together under a coach that has galvanized them and instilled belief. It is a country that has generated 2 or 3 potential world-class stars, particularly at the top of the pitch, that have then held everybody else accountable to reach that level. And as I said, a group of guys, camaraderie-wise, who've really put that cohesion on the pitch and started to play for each other in an environment where they've been taken care of. And I think that is very important, that John Herdman's legacy, when he leaves, and he will leave, no matter whether it's after this World Cup or the next one, that whoever comes in next, that support system for this national team is all filtered towards making sure that it's a high performance environment, that the ability to play under pressure and perform under pressure is something that has been lacking in this country for far too long. And to have that mental side of the game, to know that you can fail like a Mark Anthony Kaye did in that Costa Rica game, and then know that you're going to have people to back you up, and you're not going to be held accountable too much and go, you can't do that. You learn from it. But that's, for me, is the next step with this men's national team. As for the rest of the country, how we produce players, we could sit here and talk for hours about that, guys. But, for me, at least what I do see in this is a little bit like the Toronto Raptors when they first came up with the Vince Carter era, that you start galvanizing a generation, and young players look up to these players and go, yeah, why not soccer? Now there's a pathway. Now the Canadian Premier League's there. I'm not going to get thrown out of academy at 14 and have a pit to, and have nowhere to go. Maybe I can find a different way to make it, because what a lot of these players have is they all have stories of being told, no, you're not going to make it. And they did. And they found ways to do it despite not having a lot of avenues. And those avenues now are developing a little bit more, and we can only hope that they continue to do that.
It's hard for me to say I had the privilege of sitting outside in -8 in November at Commonwealth Stadium. But the thing that just overwhelmed me was sitting in the crowd watching both of those matches was the diversity of the crowd. This country's changed a lot since our appearance 36 years ago. And I just feel that this is let's use a Canadian term, this is the snowball rolling down the hill in terms of the interest level. The question is, how do we get the participation level to continue to rise and to continue to develop the players? There are so many ways we can go off of this, KJ, that I don't even know where to start with that.
I know. Yeah, I know. And of course, I think, it starts with money and the fact that it costs too much money to play. And, we're not going to give, there's certain families that we're going to fail, or not going to be able to get that opportunity because of that.
Right.
There's a lot of people in a privileged position to live in this wonderful country, but that doesn't mean that they can afford everything that's thrown at their way. So I would hope that can certainly be helped a little bit. But you're right. It's an enormous discussion that everybody's got to get on the same path. The one thing I would say is I think that unity is really important. It cannot be about that coach thinking, how do I win my game that day and then getting my participation trophies? It's how do you develop players? How do you develop young men, and how do you develop young women to be better people as you develop them along the way? And that's, for me, is very, very important.
I want to jump into, because there was something that I was fascinated to watch, and it was Alphonso Davies was brought in to drop the puck at an Oilers game. And just watching the look on the faces of Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, they were like almost in awe of this kid. But then you saw the other side of it. You saw Fonzie, and he was so thrilled to meet these two hockey players. And I'm thinking, here's some guys that can actually do some great things for sport in our country, not just hockey and not just soccer.
Yeah, I think that's another thing for me, is that soccer is no longer that fringe sport that you guys probably remember it as. And I think it was a fringe sport when I moved here 20 years ago. It wasn't on television as much. And now this next generation of Canadians have had access to everything they can watch around the world. And they know what soccer feels like. They know what it smells like. So these athletes now are all coming up having watched that as well. And so, last night at the game, there's a couple of big Raptors there as well. Pascal Siakam was there, and they're interested to come. They don't just want to be there because it's a big day. They know what's going on. I would hear stories of the Blue Jays when they had their playoff runs a few years ago, finding out what channel's the Champions League game on. I need to watch the Champions League game in the clubhouse, just before the game starts. So I think it's becoming that big, obviously international players like Draisaitl, they know that already. They come from that country. They know what that culture's like. But over here, I think we're starting to get that as well, and which is fantastic. And I think we just need to make sure that we can make it accessible still. People can still see these games as much as possible and drive this sport forward.
Now, Kristian, I know now is a time to enjoy the buzz between now and the actual World Cup. And this is maybe a big question, so forgive me, but I remember that buzz, as I said, years ago. It was a different country and a different time. We've made the World Cup. Here's what we think it means moving forward. What do we need to do between now and whenever to make this more than a buzz? Isn't it great just to go, to develop the players, to take players from this more diverse makeup that we have and turn it into something that's sustainable rather than once every 36 years?
Yeah, it's a great point. Well, I mean, first of all, we have to continue to educate how important the World Cup is. And I think people are starting to understand that more in this country. I've said it for years, guys. There's no more two important words spoken in our sport put together than World Cup. It just elevates everything from meaningful games to everything. People pay attention because that's what it means. That's not, that crowd's not that crowd yesterday. If that's a Nations League game, you're getting 15,000 people showing up with that kind of weather. So, that is the power of the World Cup. And so that is what we have next in the next cycle. We are hosting the World Cup. So it's like that is an enormous opportunity. And when I say that, I don't mean the 10 games that are going to be played in this country, whether they're in Vancouver, Edmonton, or Toronto. Those games will come, those games will go. It's the infrastructure you build around it at those moments, the training facilities that you need to provide for these teams. The last thing I want to be seeing, and I've told people this, is if Germany or whatever, you name the country, gets drawn to play in their group in Canada within those World Cups, I don't want them flying in the day before the game, training in a local facility in the United States, and just flying in and then leaving. I went to do a game many years ago at BMO Field. PSG came to play at BMO Field, and the facilities they couldn't find anywhere to train. They trained in New York, and they flew in the day of the game, and they flew home that night. Yeah. We cannot have that. When you host major events, you need these countries to come into those areas and get to know Canada and get to talk to them, and they live there, and they talk about that moment, and that's them for a month, and they train there, and that makes a big difference in those communities. And then they leave. The legacy is that they leave what Germany left in Brazil when they built their own hotel and training facilities and hospitals, and then they hand the keys and say, there you go, you can have that. That's what you need. We need to have those training facilities and those Excel centers to be able to create the pathway for Canadian soccer players going forward, that the 2026 World Cup was more than just hosting 10 World Cup games and having big players play on Canadian soil. Well,
see, and the thing for me too, and you just brought it up, was that I watched the clinch, and I said to myself, this is great for this year, but look what this is really setting the table for the next one. And that's what I love about it, is that now instead of talking about 2026, maybe a year out, we're doing it like 4 years out. And I think that's the best part of all this, is that it just keeps the momentum going.
Yeah, because we have to say, and I didn't say it yesterday on the broadcast, there's a lot of things to say, but we're not going to have another day like yesterday for many years, because now they've qualified. So how are you going to galvanize the next group, right? What are people going to get motivated by Gold Cups or friendlies against big clubs for the next 4 years to prepare for the next World Cup? The next World Cup is 48 teams. It's overpopulated and far too big, but that's the way that the World Cup is going. And the World Cup after that is. So Canada's expectation now is that they should qualify for the World Cup every year, because there's going to be 6 CONCACAF teams going to the World Cup every year after this. So there's never going to be a moment like that again, where they could roll in be an underdog and achieve something. And that's what you could do with this. This was why this journey was always so more important than the destination in this qualification process. It was one chance before the footballing world and World Cup changed forever. That was the chance they had to do. And now we'll figure out whether that momentum, which is a great word you use, Bryn, can carry on building for this team to be connected with all these other games for the next 4 years.
Hey, and the other thing too, we have the draw coming up. Instead of looking to see who I might cheer for, what underdog team is going to suddenly pop up, now we have Canada involved.
Your own team.
Relatives were getting a hold of me yesterday from overseas saying, hey, Canada's on their radar. And I'm thinking, well, that's great. But the question is, can we make it count? Can we do something to surprise when we get to Qatar? How do you see that?
I think they've got a shot. You know, what I'll always say about Canada is that no matter who they're playing, I think they'll always have a chance to score. They're efficient in front of goal, and they don't need 5 or 6 chances to put home one. And that's really important in the international game, where the play is slower, the games are a bit more tedious, the defensives sit a little bit deeper, so it's harder to break it down, particularly in tournament-style football. But when you've got David and Davies and Larin and Buchanan, you've got difference makers in the final third, Eustachio with that final pass. I always feel like no matter who they play, they're going to have a chance to score goals. Now, defensively, they may get found out a little bit more, but let's find out about the draw. And I think the objective will be get out the group, and then the overexcitement of everybody else will be, can they win a knockout game and somehow get to a World Cup quarterfinal? Because that would be just incredible.
And the interesting thing now, Kristian, is they've done this without Alphonso Davies for the time being. Is he back at Bayern Munich training now? I think I read that somewhere today. They have a chance to get much stronger between now and the next time they hit the pitch, don't they?
Yeah, I spoke to Alfonso at a 30-minute sit-down with him last week on my Canadian Premier League Newsroom podcast and YouTube. You can check that out. He's in great spirits. You know, he's training now individually, not training fully contact right now with the players. Bayern have been very, very careful with his development and his recovery back from myocarditis, but it's all pointing in the right direction. There's a reason why he wasn't in the stadium yesterday, because they want to be cautious with him. They want to have him back at training this morning like they did in Munich. But I would imagine within the month of April, you'll see him back on the pitch. And as you said, then he missed the last 6 World Cup qualifiers. He only played 7 of the 14 games. We played 50% of the games in the final World Cup qualifying, and they still went and qualified quite handedly. So yeah, to have a player like that on that left-hand side again will be pretty exciting.
I'd like to see him calm down a little bit. I don't want to see him go. Yeah, it was pretty crazy watching him get excited yesterday. It was a lot of fun. Yeah. We've been wanting to get you on for the longest time. We've tried, and now here we've got you, and now we got a lot to talk about between now and the end of November. So thanks for your time today.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
And quickly, your podcast again?
You can check out the Canadian Premier League Newsroom podcast on all aspects, and also go to the Canadian Premier League YouTube channel and OneSoccer, where we host live streams a lot on the Canadian game. And the Canadian Premier League kicks off 7th of April. We're excited.
So here we are. It's the spring, and hey, look who's in the studio. Brent McIntosh from the McIntosh Group at Remax River City. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you, Brent?
Great. It's nice to have you in here. The spring is here, and things are getting busy.
Spring has sprung, and the market is on fire, Bryn. Absolutely incredible. For single-family houses, anyway, in Edmonton.
Really? And it's just kind of flipped the switch, huh?
I've never seen an increase in values this much in the last 30 days. Absolutely incredible. Edmonton's growth for the single-family market, and I can't put a pinpoint on why, but it's pretty awesome if you own a house in Edmonton.
Now, with the economy the way it is, and it's just kind of crazy right now with everything that's going on in the world, how is that affecting us?
That's a great question.
Do you want some time to think about it?
I do. Yeah, I don't know if it's not like Edmonton's completely insulated from everything, but
yeah,
if we're talking about the Russian war, for example, and the price of oil, that's nothing but a good thing for all of Alberta. So that's going to drive house prices. The unfortunate positive of a horrible negative. Of course, every time you pay more at the gas pump, it's brutal as a family, but pretty good for the economy.
Yeah. So how do people get involved? If they're thinking about it, now's the time to move, right?
Well, definitely. If you're thinking about selling, I can't think of a better time to give us a call. We're at 780-464-0075. And either myself or one of my team members will be happy to meet with you to talk about the sale of your property.
What about getting an evaluation done on their house if they're looking at selling?
Yeah, that's where we'll start. Completely complimentary. No obligation, and we'll sit down, we'll talk about the value, we'll show what's going on in the market, and we'll even give you, the seller, some tips on how to get the most out of their house.
Perfect. So once again, how do people get a hold of you?
780-464-0075 or on the web, macintoshgroup.ca.
And here you are in the sports thing. It's nice to have you here.
Well, I love watching you guys do the sports show.
Excellent. Thanks. Well, there we go. Quite the show today. A little different from what we usually are talking about, which is hockey, and more hockey, but it was the big story over the weekend. But there were a few other things that happened, Robin. The Calgary Flames absolutely took the Edmonton Oilers apart on a Saturday night matchup, 9-5. I'm going to say it right off the top, and then you give me your thoughts. We could talk about how crazy the defense was for both teams in a 9-5 game. But for my money now, the one thing that I take away from that game, which from an Oilers perspective is kind of a one-off. They've been playing much better 5-on-5. They just were horrible. But Calgary's a better team right now for my money. And I think right from the goal out, the Oilers have got some guys that are very deadly up front. But as for a team and playing like a team, the Calgary Flames are superior to the Edmonton Oilers. You go now.
Well, I mean, I haven't seen the Oilers taken to the proverbial woodshed like that for a while. I'm with you on Calgary being a better team overall. I don't think they're that much better, although they were that much better in that particular game. Darryl Sutter's got the team playing the way he wants them to play. And when you start in goal with Jacob Markstrom playing like he is this year, this is what the Calgary Flames thought they were getting and didn't get from him last year. And when it starts in goal, it's easy to build something. If you're always looking over your shoulder, wondering what the hell's going on back there, it's tough to play that way. Their defensive group is very good. They're big, they're strong, they're physical, and they can move the puck. Their forwards are very, they're very good, and there's not really a big weakness there. They're playing like I thought they might last year, but didn't. The Oilers, I think you take the video disc of it now, because it's no longer a tape, and you put it in the bin, and and you move along to the Arizona Coyotes and the teams that come next. The Oilers, the Flames aren't as good as they looked, and the Oilers aren't as bad as they looked. They've been playing well. They need to put that behind them and put on the push, because they've had some players looking very good for them lately, and I think they're going to build up a head of steam heading into the playoffs. You'd never know it by that game, but I still believe that's the case.
Well, we've dumped all over the netminders a fair bit this season, but in this particular case, based off that particular game, I am not going to go after Mike Smith or Mikko Koskinen at all, because the shit show in front of them was atrocious. It was just awful. And it wasn't just the defensive core, although they really were glaring, but the forwards just seemed like they had no interest in picking up anybody. It was a complete debacle by the hockey club. But everybody likes to go after the goalies. I'm not blaming the goalies for that one.
I don't recall. I tweeted it at the time. If Darnell Nurse has played a worse game, I don't recall when and where it was. He was not very good against Dallas either, by the way. He was terrible in that game. Cody Ceci, who's been a very pleasant find in my books up until now for the most part, was awful.
I know.
Evan Bouchard looked like he'd never played the game of hockey before. It was unbelievable. And we know he's a good young player, but he was terrible. It was just everybody brought their D game, and you can't do that. You don't have good enough goaltending or good enough forwards to make up for that kind of defensive play. And all three pairs were awful in their own way.
Hey, you brought up Darnell Nurse. I'm starting to see a bit of an evolution. And I know people are going to say, oh, my God, no, not like that. But when he first came in, he was a rush the puck, move in, be involved in the offense. I'm starting to see him try to be a little more stay at home. I think right now he's kind of stuck in that zone in between right now, and I think he's second-guessing his game. But I'll bet you within a year here, he'll find his way. I just think he's looking a little lost right now. Do you see it like that?
I know what you're talking about, how it appears. I would describe it this way, though. Darnell Nurse, he never made mistakes of omission, not doing enough. He made mistakes of commission, trying to do too much.
Yeah.
Because of the physical gifts he's got, his ability to skate, his size, He could race up and down the rink all he wanted before he got to the National Hockey League because he was big enough and fast enough to outskate and outplay bad decisions. What he's done is toned it down and decided, sort of the old saying, when to go and when to whoa. And he's better at that now. When he has difficult games, he lapses back into that habit of trying to do too much. So he knows how to do it, and I think he's got it down pat now. That doesn't mean it doesn't sneak into his game, because you do see it from time to time. But I think he'll be fine. He used to go, Darnell, your end is back that way.
Yeah.
Like it was, well, I can rush the puck. Now he still does that, but the timing's better. The situations are better. He reads the game far better. So that, I won't call it a one-off, because it'll happen again, but it's very rare compared to his first couple years in the league. He'll be fine. Hey, it's nice to have the kind of guy that has the tools to outskate and outplay his mistakes when he has a bit of a brain cramp. Because let's face it, there's a lot of guys out there that if they make that kind of, they have a brain fart, they don't have the ability to overcome it by dashing back to their own end. They're stuck and they're going to wear it. So he was bad, but he'll be okay. But you know what? Everybody just looked awful that night. And when it's, here's the thing that you see on social media, and I'm sure you saw it, Bryn, too. Every second comment was, and they're going to pay him $9.25 million next year.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? That money's spent. He had a shitty night, whether he was making $2 million, $4 million, $6 million, or $8 million. It's funny people go right to the money now, and I know why, but come on, do you really think he's going to play that way more nights than not? I don't think so.
Not to do a player-to-player comparison, but I'm going to think back to Paul Coffey, because I had a chance to watch him plenty in person. Yeah. Paul was exactly the same way, where he could get caught way up the ice, and he could be the first guy back because of his speed. So I see a little bit of a resemblance there. But like I said, Paul Coffey is here, and Darnell Nurse is here. So nonetheless, it's over with. Johnny Gaudreau. That's the best game I've seen Johnny Hockey play. I thought he was fantastic in that matchup.
Johnny Gaudreau is going to get paid.
Oh, yeah. Ka-ching.
This is the ultimate. Oh, yeah, I'm up for a contract here. I'll have my best season by a mile. Johnny Gaudreau is going to have what? 100 and how many points?
Well, certainly plus 100 plus.
Yeah, he's and you know what? He's been terrific. He showed some of that before, and then he sort of backed off it a bit for whatever reason. He's a hell of a player, you know.
Oh, yeah.
He's quick. He's smart. He's a little bit of a pain in the ass. He occasionally gets a big guy. Well, I guess everybody's a big guy compared to Johnny, mad at him, chasing him around because he gives you the stick and that. But yeah, what a great season he's having. Holy cow.
The other thing, too, is that he is going to go into this postseason on everybody's radar screen. So he's going to have to deal with what the superstars deal with in the playoffs, and that is he's going to get a lot of chops on the hands. He's going to get a lot of elbows in the chops. He's going to get a lot of extra coverage. The question mark for Calgary will be, can they get it from their bottom six? And they've been doing that all season long. I don't see why that's going to change. And everything else seems to be fitting. The jigsaw puzzle seems to be having all the pieces fit beautifully for Daryl Sutter.
You know what? I got a question for you, Bryn. Let's bring it back up the highway here. Daryl's got a lot of things going right down there, and we're talking about Gaudreau getting paid. Ken Holland.
Yeah.
3 of the guys who did diddly squat against the Flames, just like everybody else, but that are going to need contracts. Kyler Yamamoto and Jesse Puljujarvi are RFAs with arbitration rights coming up next year. The other one is this, and I never thought I'd hear myself saying it. Is there a way to get Evander Kane signed how much money is too much, how much term is too much, given the red flags that I, among a lot of other people, talked about. I mean, I'm not being hypocritical here. I've always known the guy can play hockey. You need him to keep his nose clean off the ice. I can't see him taking a hometown discount or saying, hey, I get to play with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. I'll take less money, because he's still got this Chapter 7 thing going on off the ice where he needs the dough. The first two are easy. They're RFAs with arb rights. What about Evander Kane? Where do you sit on him?
Well, I think, and talking to a few people who've watched him in other cities, they say that they're seeing something different here. I don't know if it's a maturity level, if we want to use that word. I think that might be a little inappropriate here, because he hasn't shown a ton of maturity in the past, but he seems to be really charged up about playing with Connor or Leon. There seems to be a bit of a connection there that you can see visibly. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if he starts to have a lot of fun here and he can start to just play the game. And it's hard to believe I'm saying this in a market like this one, where everything's a little intense both on and off the ice. Yeah. But he seems to be really charged up playing with these two guys. Now, I don't know if that's all just... Some people say, well, you're making too much of that. I don't know if I am. I think that he's probably enjoying where he's going right now. But I'd also heard some rumblings that they've already kind of had casual discussions already about what's coming down the pipe. But at the end of the day, more interested to see where he goes. I know one thing, the way he's been playing, he might outprice himself out of the market in a big hurry. But I would, right now, I would be certainly, if I was Kenny Holland, I would be trying to figure out how we could keep this guy, because he has given them a different element. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins' return to the lineup has done exactly the same thing. I think Derek Brassard is actually a great little find. I think that it's kind of given them three lines now suddenly. Jesse Puljujarvi, I think, is going to be moved this summer. I just have that feeling. I think he's tailed off a little bit. I don't know if you see it the same way as I do. And as for Yamamoto, who's really picked it up, I think that's a coaching change that's affected him there. He's basically been given green lights to do some things that I don't think he was under Dave Tippett. I don't know. They're going to have an interesting offseason, but we'll see how fast the offseason gets here.
Well, for me, Bryn, Evander Kane is a $6 million a year player, and the Oilers can't afford to pay him that much. They can't afford to pay him that much. Even they can move out Cassian, they can move out Tyson Barrie. If you do the math, because you can't just say, well, take away Barry's money. Okay, how much are you paying the guy who takes his spot?
Right.
So when you do all the math, it's not impossible, but man, it's a big call. And here's the other thing. Not only are you going into a level of money where you've got to make a lot of things happen, he's going to say, well, I appreciate the offer of $6. I really think that's fair, but I can get that money, and I can get it for 5 years in city X, Y, and Z. And now do you go against everything that you've heard about in the past, where, okay, now you've got the contract and he's got the money. Does it change anything?
Yeah.
I'm not saying it does, because like I say, I hope he's flying straight as an arrow, and everything that you and I wouldn't know about anyway off the ice there's some maturity and things are getting better for him and he's sorting things out. I hope that's the case, but I think it's a stretch for him. The others, Jesse Puljujarvi is very good in things that don't necessarily show up. And there's some people who are good with numbers, and I don't dive headlong into the advanced statistics and analytics like some people do, but good things happen when Jesse's on the ice. The thing is, it doesn't always happen for him in terms of, well, there's another goal, there's another assist. They're not easily read, but they are there. There's some work done by a guy locally here named Darcy McLeod. He calls himself Wood Guy on Twitter.
Yes.
He has got some numbers that say everything is better no matter what line Jesse Puljujarvi's on. So I'm willing to, if he says it, I'm willing to believe it, because That's his realm, not mine. When I look at Jesse, I like what I see, but I find myself saying, I wish he would finish a little bit more. But that said, there's other things there. Yamamoto's on a heater. You can't judge him on this one, but I like his pursuit of the puck. I worry about his size. I've seen small men try and play big. They can do it for a while, but it wears them down. And you might remember this player, Bryn. Todd Marchand did it for a long time. He was a nasty little, you know what. He'd get in there and stick you and run his mouth and stick his glove in your face, and he'd take some coming back the other way. He was pretty durable.
Daniel Briere was another guy like that.
Daniel Briere and Mike Comrie dropping the gloves at center ice in Phoenix. That was terrific.
That was a good one.
Bigger player, but same idea. He got worn out and he got hurt. Was Todd Harvey, San Jose, and he came to Edmonton for that season. I hope Kyler stays out of the way, but part of the problem of what makes him good is that he goes where the trouble is, and sometimes where the trouble is not a very good place when you're 5'8" and $165. So we'll see.
And frequently it's in the offensive zone, 200 feet from his own net, so it's not in his own end, and those penalties are always quite glaring. Hey, we got a dash. This is a lot of fun today. And like I said, a very diverse topics, soccer and hockey, and as it should have been on this particular show. We had every reason to talk about both with a great degree of interest. Hey, we got to tell people to check us out on Twitter. The handle's really simple, @Outsiders2020. Also, make sure you tell your friends to subscribe to our RSS feed on any of your favorite ear candy sites like Apple, Google, Spotify, Pocket Casts, Deezer, all of them. There's a whole pile of them out there, and we're also on YouTube as well. Robin is recording from the Lucky Sam studio in Southwest Edmonton, and I'm at the downtown studio of Road 55, about a hockey puck's throw away from Rogers Place. So we appreciate your support. The one thing that's becoming quite noticeable to me is that people are telling other people about our podcast, and the most important thing is retweet it to your buddies. That's huge for us. That really starts to spread our message at a much greater depth, and so we do appreciate that. So, Robin, that's it for today.
I tell you what, I love a podcast where we spend most of the time talking about something that happened when I was in my 20s. It's been a while. It's a wonderful memory.
Yes, trip down memory lane. Hey, that's it for today. Thanks, Robin. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, Bryn.
Fun storming the castle.
Road 55.